Hey everybody, it's Wendy. In case you didn't know, David finally got off his butt and finished his book, True Crime and Consequences. The book is super educational and talks about the world of true crime and where it meets real investigations. It is perfect for everyone, from true crime fans like myself, to the true crime podcaster or YouTuber, to the amateur detective or web sleuth. And not to leave anyone out, you cops need to read this book too. True Crime and Consequences is available at murderpolicepodcast.com, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, well, pretty much anywhere you'd find a great book like this. So true crime fans, go get your copy today.
Welcome to the Murder Police Podcast. I am not David Lyons or Wendy Lyons. I am Scott Harvey, and this is the second hostile takeover of the Murder Police Podcast. For those of you that missed the first episode, I'm a former hostage negotiator, communication coach, consultant, speaker, author of a book called Silence Kills, but I'm also an avid listener to the Murder Police Podcast. And it dawned on me lately, because I've been working with David, that he's written a book that came out, and it's not been on the Murder Police Podcast. So that explains the hostile takeover. Like, I'm coming over, and we are talking about your book because your community and this world needs to hear about this book. So super excited to be here today, talking to David about this new book and what that means for his world and your world.
Warning. The podcast you're about to listen to may contain graphic descriptions of violent assaults, murder, and adult language. Listener discretion is advised.
Scott, thanks a bunch. You make a really good point. We were talking on a Zoom meeting this morning that after 2 years plus, because of my procrastination, but to the help of you and everybody on the mastermind, Christy and everybody, is I finally get the book published. And then we were joking this morning that of all the people that I haven't really announced it to, I think we teased that it could be coming, but it's out. It's been published since June 17th. And so I appreciate you coming, because I want the people that listen and watch us to understand what the book is about. And I think that when they get the ins and outs, they'll be encouraged to buy it. And I recommend it to people if you want to get a little more educated on the system and how all this really works in the background. So thank you for taking the time.
I'm excited. Like, you own this land. You should be able to put a sign on this land for the cool things you're doing. So this Murder Police Podcast needs to know about ways that they can learn more about what it is you're up to and how they can apply this to their world. So I'm excited to talk about this book. Tell us a little bit, give us the 30,000-foot view of this book. I haven't even revealed the title yet, whether you've done that or not. I know there's some video of it here, but...
Right. You know, the book, probably the genesis of it is a few years ago, I jumped online with a young lady named Daisy Waits from the United Kingdom. Mm-hmm. And Daisy was interviewing about the Gabby Petito homicide, and she was looking for somebody in the business, a murder cop or a homicide detective rather, that had an opinion about that. And it was neat because Daisy went down the road of where the book goes. I always say that I have to give her credit for inspiring me to some degree, because she talked about the sensationalism out in the media and the social media, and where is that meeting the real investigation? And that sparked a thought. Because I think that coming from somebody who did the work in the investigation side, and now that I do have a podcast that's fairly popular that people listen to because of the authenticity, is I got to thinking, hey, I can speak from both sides of that now. And looking at my own observations about when the world of true crime like pushes a case forward maybe or helps it, but there's a lot of sad examples of when I think they're going to hinder an investigation.
Yeah.
I thought about that. That's when we connected, I think, on your mastermind, and began to draft out the outline of what that looks like. And the subtitle, the book is called True Crime and Consequences, subtitled, Does the True Crime Community Help Murder Investigations or Hurt Them? Kind of a neat question to ask, because the answer would be yes. And as a whole, I think that there's a lot of well-intended people. So my book really is a primer about what really goes on with these things. And I think the timing is good. There's so many conversations in the industry right now about ethics. And I remember just a couple weeks ago, Ashley Flowers with Crime Junkies dropped a quick reel on social media, and she was asking the same thing. Is there a point where we go too far? You know, you've got opinions and conjecture, which is part of the fun of the true crime community.
Right.
But as I talk about in the book, the louder you are and the more platform you have, is there potential that you could harm people? Could you harm an investigation? Justice Roberts with the Supreme Court just in May, this was amazing to see, was making a comment at a law school, I believe, and he made a remark to the fact that we've raised some generations of people. I'm kind of tearing his quote up, but the gist was we've raised some generations of people who have not been educated on how this system works, which is sadly true.
Yeah.
But they're quick to criticize. And his perspective was the ad hominem attacks toward the Supreme Court and people who are offering emotional opinions on things, and they don't understand the rule of law.
Right.
And there we go. So that's the genesis of True Crime and Consequences. And it's a discussion that ranges all over the place as far as ethics, commitment, and doing no harm.
Yeah. So why now? Why write this book now? You're a couple years into retirement. You were a murder detective. You were a commander at the police department. So why now is this book kind of coming to fruition?
I think the timeliness of it, I think it's time to continue that conversation. Again, I'm getting a feel. More of the crime cons are starting to panel up people on ethics and things like that. I think it's serving a purpose. Okay. It's not a lecture. I don't want people to think that it's a lecture on on the environment so much, but it's a very educational tool. I tell people all the time that if you're a true crime fan and you read this book, I believe you're going to be able to be a little quicker in the conversation as far as that. For example, you know, this whole thing in investigations isn't about saying, well, I know for a fact. It's about saying, what if?
Yeah.
And that's what investigations are, is what if. So from there, and then I move into one of my target audiences I believe that they'll be helpful is the true crime content creator.
Yeah.
There's probably the one that if I really want to help people, I think I can help them. Even when people are well-intended, if they don't understand the system, they can put cases out, too much information if a case isn't solved, and actually jeopardize a case. You know, I teach nationally.
Right.
And just about a month ago, I met some people that were involved in an investigation, and they talked about how because of some social media gin-up, for example, in this case, the death penalty was removed from the possibility of the cases moving forward. And regardless of what people think about the death penalty, if that meant something to that victim's family, that was an exterior force.
Yeah.
That's how powerful this can be. The other thing, too, is that the responsibility I think true crime content creators really have in protecting the surviving victims, the family members and friends that are left behind.
Yeah.
I see a lot of cases where one of the most critical things to deal with, and you dealt with this in your career too, was people in pain. And when people are in pain, they're emotionally hijacked to a great degree. One of the things I see a lot of times is that when somebody loses somebody, the truth is kind of ambiguous for a while, and there's never enough questions to be answered.
Right.
A true crime content creator sometimes might exacerbate that pain. Yeah. And I've watched that where there's times when somebody that survived something like that and they're left behind, they need cold hard facts, logic and reasoning. And people who aren't used to that, Scott, like you and me were, they don't know what that's like when they see that. Right. They get emotionally charged with them and they advance that stuff. Right. And then lastly, but one of the next target audience would be when the true crime community goes live, and they actually want to engage and participate in an investigation, which I think is beautiful. Right. They've got time and they've got imagination, but if you don't know the rules, you can screw some things up. There's tons of examples of fantastic work.
Yeah, and I think the true crime community, and you know them very well because of the niche you found yourself in with the podcast and everything, 90% of them are really good-hearted, good-natured people who genuinely want to help.
That's it.
This book, and you, whether you coined the term true crimers or not, I'm going to give you credit for that because it's in the book. So the true crimers, this book allows them to kind of understand the rules and do that in a more effective way.
Thank you.
I see this book as, one of the classes I took in law enforcement was child passenger safety training. So learning how to install car seats and that kind of stuff. I just happened to have a kid in a car seat at the time who I thought I had done her car seat well. Mm-hmm. Every night I came home from that class, I tweaked one or two things that I learned about in class. Good intentions, not good information. This book takes their good intentions, gives them better information, and allows them to tweak going forward to be better just because they were ignorant to the other things ahead of time.
There we go.
So I didn't maliciously misinstall her car seat. I just did the best I could with the information I had. When I got better information, I made better choices. So this book, I think, for the average true crimer, kind of gives them the playground rules to not get in trouble and to be able to do what they're doing without hurting the investigation and or hurting the victims. Because I know this Murder Police podcast is always victim-focused.
Most certainly. And I think that's where my heart goes to. And you're right, I agree that tons of people that do the right thing for the right reasons, the awareness piece, to make sure we don't forget these people. That's a big mantra of ours, is we don't want any victim to be forgotten or to get absorbed in history as an old newspaper article. Missing, unsolved, or solved, we don't want that to happen. But again, I thank you for that, because that was the goal. Is that I'm giving you a coloring book with good, solid lines.
Yeah.
And drifting out of those lines is a hazard enough for an investigator that does this as a living, and it's a hazard for people that, even if you're well-intended, that it can be a problem. And I think I call it a primer. It may be it may be a kind of like the resource for people who want to get involved. Yeah. Because it's a 36,000-foot view of how the system works, because there's variations and nuances and whatnot. Right. But it definitely is that. So for people that really want to get involved, it's kind of that thing about, maybe I'm saying, take a breath. Yeah. Step lightly. One of the chapters is about landmines, the things that you can trip on. You and I know how difficult they are. We've also seen in our career cases get jeopardized when we misstepped. Yeah. Unintentionally. Yeah. Unintentionally. And now we have a whole nother group of people that are in there, which that leads me to the next target audience, because I don't want to leave these people out. I'm talking to cops.
I was circling back to that if you didn't get there, because that is one of your target markets.
Yeah, there we go.
This is what you do week in, week out for FBI LEDA.
That's
right?
it. That's it. I speak to thousands of people here across the country. Yep. And so what I want to do is, I don't want people to think I'm bitching and moaning about what they do or don't do. Right. Is a lot of this conversation is for the police is to open your mind. Yeah. And pay attention to these people when they come to you. And I think I was pretty clear in the book that in all candid conversation you would have with anybody, we don't really solve cases. The community solves the cases. Yeah. And I even make a remark in a book that pretty much talking to the police, I'm like, come on. Right. You'll take a dope fiend or a prostitute and run with what they say, which is fine. Yeah. I'm not degrading them, because some of my best witnesses were people that walked lifestyles you and I didn't. Then what's wrong with somebody that comes in and says, I'm a true crime enthusiast and I've been doing some stuff on the internet? Right. And I found this. Right. Open your mind.
It's a misconceived notion about the type of kook this is, because in law enforcement, food shows up at the police department. The number one question is, who brought this? Who's going to vouch for him? Because there are some crazies out there, right? So I'm not eating an unnamed casserole that just shows up in the squad room. Yeah. But I think for the true crime community, to somebody say, hey, I've kind of been trained in this. I've got a working knowledge of this. Here's why I brought this to your attention, because I was thinking about this. And then for the law enforcement to say, you know what, you may be right.
That's it. Yeah.
That's one of my favorite expressions for anybody is, you may be right. Because then me as the investigator, I don't feel the need to defend myself. Right. And you feel like your information was taken into my investigation.
There we go.
I'm not saying that's a great idea. You know what, you may be right. Right. And I may think about it for a week and decide, you know what, they were wrong.
That's it.
But I at least have information in a different perspective.
That's it. And there are so many super talented people out there. Yeah. If you watch some of the latest documentaries, Don't F with Cats, they call him Mostly Harmless. Both of those actually are, I don't know if the producer knew it, but they're showing both sides of this argument in one documentary. You'll see where it is a full-on collapse of people that are misdirected, but then they both show incredible. I remember watching those, as a former investigator, I'm like, wow. Yeah. I mean, please be on my team. And that's the genesis of the book.
Right.
Is in the end is how do we get together? Mm-hmm. So and the book talks about, I actually lay out to people how you and I perceive people.
Right.
Because we have a stereotype about that, but what is really going on? And when you meet when you going to go meet with the cops, is that I go into the why and it comes down to, we talk about in the book quite a bit, is that, they're going to want to know your motivation, because the motivation is going to see where your emotions are. Yeah. And your emotions are either going to be hijacked or they're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And that's okay too. So I tell people all the time now that I really believe if you get the book and you read it and you're a content creator, I probably am going to increase the odds of you sitting down with a murder cop.
Yeah.
And I believe that.
Yeah.
Same thing with police, though, is that let's get our stuff together.
Yeah.
Let's open our heart to the fact that these people have imaginations and they have time to. Most of us have imaginations, but the number one rule in this business is the lack of time.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist.
Yeah. And you and I both with a law enforcement background, we know the law enforcement audience is the harder sell.
Yeah.
Like the crime community, the true crimers are very primed for this. We talked about this when you kicked around this idea, like this book didn't exist, which is scary and exciting at the same time. Scary because maybe there's not an audience for it. Right. Exciting, we're first. Right. You're the first one to really write this type of book that we've been able to find. Somebody may have written one and their mom bought a couple of copies, but this is the first book I've seen in this lane for this type of audience. So it's exciting to be the first one, but it's the most resistance is going to come from law enforcement. I believe it.
And again, I tell people, I think I'm just starting a conversation.
Yeah.
But it's out there. Like I said, when you've got crime junkies, and she makes that statement, who I respect them immensely, that's why they're wildly successful. And again, I'm starting to see more talks about ethical considerations and things like that. And maybe some more maybe some more concern about, again, those people who have been left behind. I'm a big believer that we don't need to see pictures of decedents and how they were left and how they were found. And you and
there's
I both
people
know.
doing that. There's people writing those books. There's people running those websites that are, to me, exploitive.
100%.
And that's not you, and that's not this. I want people to be very clear.
Exactly. Yeah, the podcast has never been that way, and the book isn't about that. Yeah. So I think it's a good discussion to start. I think that it'll be carried on and more and more. But when I was researching, I couldn't find anything, because what I learned about book publishing, and you're too, is that one of the first things you have to do is what else is out there.
Right.
And my publisher, Jill Carlisle with Empowered Press, she did research and came back to me, and she goes, I can't find it.
Right.
And so if it's there, it just didn't get. Hats off to whoever did it.
Yeah, and maybe this will boost the sales of that book, because we need
Hopefully
that too.
So. Hopefully so.
Whatever that is. So I think it's interesting that the law enforcement, and correct me if I'm wrong, because you were more entrenched in the investigations end of your job than I was, but what I think law enforcement is missing in this book is we have confidential informants, right? We have people that work for us that we send out as our agents to collect information. Those people are governed by a lot of the same rules we are in law enforcement.
Absolutely.
And they are, as our agent, they bring a lot of our restrictions with them. True crimers who are not our agent are able to participate in conversations, are able to see things when they're out and about that we in law enforcement might have to get a warrant for. Then if they show up with that information and say, hey, I was nosing around this crime scene and I saw this thing and I brought my attention, here's a picture of it, that's served up to us as a silver platter to put into our notebook that we may not have been able to gather on our own.
There we go.
Because one thing, we've been over that scene 50 times. You and I both know in the book writing process, like we wrote these chapters 4 or 5 times each. Our editor saw them 4 or 5 times each, but a separate proofreader went over it word for word, line by line, to make sure that the punctuation, the spelling was right, because we were now blind to that. So when you're entrenched in these cases, you get so blind to the things you've already seen 50 times that somebody coming in with a fresh perspective and saying, I just saw this. Did you ever notice that? And then the humility to say, you may be right.
Humility being the operative word.
Humility.
I'm pretty clear in the book that ego has no place in this game for either of us. No, ego is, I think I've talked to you before about how Wendy always watches the true crime shows in first 48, and I'll walk through the room and watch a detective and I'll say, I would never want to work with him or her. And
Yeah.
she'll go, why? And I'm like, because they're all ate up with ego. And,
Yeah.
and so there we go. It's a gentle reminder on that. And the idea again that when you have that information, what your approach path probably needs to look like, and using the patience of it, and then understanding that you offer the information and you may wait. In the beginning of the book, I highlight a few, I call them exhibits of instances I've seen in the last few years that I wasn't crazy about. And I strip the names off of them. It isn't about calling people out. But I do name a young lady from up in, I think, British Columbia or Canada that I interviewed and did a Zoom with to talk about how she actually put some things together using pictures and closed-circuit television, and how she handed it over to the police and waited. She didn't go out on the internet and blast it everywhere. She didn't brag about it. And she talked about how neat it was to get a call from somebody from the police department saying, hey, we just want to let you know that we followed through on that, and you were right.
Yeah.
And then the cool thing when she was talking, she felt so cool. She felt so, I don't want to say honored, but the idea that this person engaged her.
She felt validated.
That's it.
Yeah.
And here we go. To get that, you're a communications expert.
Yep.
To get that kind of a relationship with somebody that you've never met before takes work from both sides.
Yeah.
That's what the book.
And for her, from a tactical law enforcement standpoint, hopefully what she understood, or maybe she learned in the process, is, yes, I gave this to the police department. If I were to go out and blast it on social media, they lose any type of tactical advantage I just gave them. Because now the public knows what I know.
That's it.
There's so much that the police knows. People think that we don't do media interviews because we don't want to, or we don't know a whole lot. We know a lot. We can't say a lot because we're still piecing things together, or we suspect a lot. I would say that. Sometimes we don't know a lot, but we suspect a lot, and we've got to make the connections to make it true. But I think in this situation with her, she gave them the time they needed to process it and to put it into their investigation without blowing it up.
That's it.
And that's the ego piece you're talking about, is like, I did a really cool thing. I do want to post on social media about it. I'm a social media guy. But it's best for the victims and the families that the police do what they need to do with this. When it's all said and done, we'll talk about what I did.
There we go. In the book, I coined a thing that's probably out there, but I talk about different types of justice, because there's all kinds of justice floating around. And I compare what I call virtue justice to criminal justice.
Yeah.
Virtue justice, in my humble opinion, is that where I'm going to yell really loud about what I think, and or I'm going to condemn somebody that I think is responsible for a crime, and I'm going to dox them, and I'm going to yell at the rooftops about them. The problem is, while that emotionally feels good, I guess, in the short term, the problem is the only place I think we need to see this is criminal justice, and you could defeat that. A big criticism I have of a lot of true crimers is that we meet families all the time on this show who have really good ideas what's happened to their loved one. And the first thing we tell them is that we won't go to specifics because of that same reason.
Right.
If I get out and blast the name of somebody who's suspected in something, at a minimum, Scott, I'm reminding them to go low. Yes. At a minimum, I'm reminding them to shut up. At a minimum, I'm reminding them, don't speak of this, don't do things. And the reality in the long game of an investigation is waiting for that person to screw up. I've always said that it's not so much that cops are smart, without taking anything away, but I always use the analogy that we wait on the bad guy, we wait for the bulb over their head to flicker and we jump on them in the dark. Yeah. If I remind you in the media over and over again that you're a target, you'll probably stay smart for a while. Yeah. I need you to limber up. And so there we go. And that I see that a lot, to a point where it's just really not right. Yeah. Because again, it may feel good to stand on a mountaintop or on a social media platform and blast all this stuff, but you could undermine the case quite a bit. And there's been recent cases where that balance has been in a flux. Karen Reed was just found not guilty. We might do a show on some of the aspects of that case that I found fascinating. But one of the things that was pretty clear is the attempts by the outside, what I call the outside or the true crime community, actually started throwing some leverage that was in the wrong direction. There's a case here in Kentucky where a young woman was murdered, and the people, I think some of those people are still going to trial right now. Mm-hmm. And you could watch the same thing happening in a small town that was happening up outside Boston.
Yeah.
And one of the judges here locally was really leaned in and said, careful.
Yeah.
I remember I saw somebody online talking about show up outside the courthouse and I hope you can yell loud enough. Well, good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck. I mean, that's a mistrial and could move it to another venue and cost the family justice again. So that's a lot of what we talk about in there.
Yeah. And in those cases, you could potentially victimize the family a second time.
There we go. Yeah.
Because we're so close, like we're going to get some type of resolution here, and then it blows up because these people who had good intentions got their pitchforks and their torches out and blew the whole thing up.
You can try them in public as a sense of virtue, or we can try them in a courtroom.
Yeah.
At which is secluded and it's quiet and it's respected and everything. But just like what you talked about is that police don't withhold anything because we want to be the gatekeepers.
Right.
But the end goal is not happening now. It's going to happen in a very sterile environment where there's lots of rules. Yeah. And we don't want to break those rules.
And appropriately so. We, as a functioning society, we need those rules.
Yes.
Like you can say what you want about defense attorneys. I like the job a defense attorney does.
Yes.
Because if I ever need one, if I'm accused rightly or falsely accused, like I want somebody who's going to make sure I get a fair trial.
Right.
And that's their job.
That's it.
Their job is not to get me off, right? Their job is to make sure I get a fair trial. And you can see them as the adversary, or you could see them as an important checks and balances on our system.
That's it.
To make sure we're dotting all of our I's and crossing all of our T's. I told every recruit I ever trained, if you tell the truth in your paperwork.
Hey, you know there's more to the story, so go download the next episode like the true crime fan that you are.
The Murder Police podcast is hosted by Wendy and David Lyons and was created to honor the lives of crime victims, so their names are never forgotten. It is produced, recorded, and edited by David Lyons. The Murder Police podcast can be found on your favorite Apple or Android podcast platform, as well as at murderpolicepodcast.com, where you will find show notes, transcripts, information about our presenters, and a link to the official Murder Police Podcast merch store, where you can purchase a huge variety of Murder Police Podcast swag. We are also on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, which is closed caption for those that are hearing impaired. Just search for the Murder Police Podcast and you will find us. If you have enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe for more and give us 5 stars and a written review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you download your podcasts. Make sure you set your player to automatically download new episodes so you get the new ones as soon as they drop. And please tell your friends. Lock it down, Judy.